All right, let's talk about something that used to mean you made it. Six figures. When we were younger, if somebody said, I make $100,000 a year, that was different. That was elite. That was top tier. That was pull up to the family reunion and everybody asking you questions type of money. You weren't worried about bills. You weren't stressing groceries. You weren't checking gas prices. You were comfortable. But now, in 2026, $100,000 doesn't hit the same. It sounds good, it looks good on paper, but does it feel good in real life? Because here's the thing, that number hasn't changed, but the cost of living has exploded. And what used to be upper middle class energy now feels like entry level stability. And let's be honest, six figures used to equal wealth. Now it equals responsibility. It doesn't mean you're rich, it means you can finally breathe. Maybe. And that's if you're disciplined. So today, we're not just talking about money, we're talking about perception. We're talking about lifestyle. We're talking about what comfortable really means. Because comfortable to one person is luxury to another and survival to somebody else. So before we say yes or no, we got to define something first. What does comfortable actually mean to you? Is it bills paid on time, no debt, vacations twice a year, designer everything, no financial anxiety? Because depending on that answer, $100,000 might be more than enough or nowhere near it. Let's remove emotion for a second and do math. $100,000 a year, after federal taxes, possibly state taxes, Social Security, Medicare, you're realistically bringing home around $70,000 to $75,000 depending on your state. That's roughly $6,000 a month. Now let's subtract life, rent or mortgage. In many decent areas, that's $2,000 to $3,000. Car note, $600 to $800. Insurance, $200 to $300. Groceries, if you're single, maybe $500 to $700. Family, $900 to $1,200. Utilities, $300 to $500. Phone bill, internet, gas, subscriptions, health insurance. We haven't touched student loans, credit cards, unexpected emergencies. That $6,000 starts shrinking fast. And if you're in cities like New York City or Los Angeles, housing alone might eat half your take home pay. So when people say six figures, they're thinking gross income, but your life is paid with net income. Gross makes you feel successful, net determines your comfort. And if you're not budgeting, six figures can disappear just as fast as $60,000. Now let's talk geography, because $100,000 in a small or mid sized city hits different. In some parts of Texas, Georgia, or the Midwest, you could buy a home, have yard space, drive something reliable, save money, take trips. In high cost cities, completely different story. In Miami, in California, in the Northeast, you're budgeting carefully. You're making decisions. You're not reckless. Location is a cheat code because comfort isn't just about how much you make, it's about how far your dollar stretches. And here's the psychological trap, social media shows lifestyle without context. You see somebody at brunch every weekend, traveling, leasing luxury cars, but you don't see their rent, their debt, their stress, their 72-hour work weeks. So when you compare your $100,000 life in a regular cost city to someone in a penthouse downtown, you're comparing two completely different financial ecosystems. Comfort must be measured against cost of living, not against Instagram. And if you're strategic about where you live, $100,000 could feel powerful. But if you're chasing image over margin, it can feel tight. All right, now let's shift the conversation because this is where it really changes. Single with no kids, $100,000 can feel real comfortable. You can travel, you can eat out, you can save, you can invest, you can upgrade your lifestyle without feeling pressure every month. You miss a check, you stress, but you're not drowning. But now let's add a spouse. Now let's add two kids. Now let's add daycare. Now let's add school clothes every season, birthday parties, field trips, doctor visits, sports fees, groceries that disappear in 3 days. Kids don't just add love to your life, they add line items to your budget. And the thing is, it's not about being flashy, it's about stability. You want to provide, you want to give them experiences you maybe didn't have. So now $100,000 doesn't feel like luxury, it feels like responsibility. And here's something real: most parents don't define comfort as vacations, they define it as security. Can I cover emergencies? Can I pay for braces without panicking? Can I handle a hospital visit without stressing my bank account? Because when you're single, comfort feels like freedom. When you're a parent, comfort feels like protection. Two completely different definitions. So when somebody says, I make six figures, the real follow up question should be, how many people depend on you? Because that changes everything. Let's talk about the elephant in the room: inflation. Because that's the silent thief of comfort. Groceries used to cost one thing, now it's double. Gas fluctuates every week. Insurance premiums climbing. Rent increasing yearly. Property taxes rising. And the wild part, most salaries haven't increased at the same pace. So technically, you're making more money than ever, but practically, it feels like you're running in place. You ever go grocery shopping and look at the total like, wait, what did I even buy? That's inflation. You go to dinner and the bill feels like you ate at a five-star restaurant, but it was casual dining. That's inflation. So when we talk about whether $100,000 is enough, we have to acknowledge that $100,000 today doesn't buy what it did 10 years ago. The number stayed the same, the purchasing power dropped. And psychologically, that messes with people because six figures used to mean upward mobility. Now it means maintaining ground. And that's frustrating for a lot of professionals who did everything right: got the degree, climbed the ladder, earned the salary, only to realize the finish line moved. Now, I'm about to say something that might hit a little. Sometimes it's not the income, it's the upgrades. Lifestyle creep is real. You get a raise, you upgrade the apartment, you upgrade the car, you start shopping different, eating at better restaurants, booking better seats. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying your success. Now, let's talk about something nobody wants to admit. A lot of people making $100,000 struggle to even get there. And that struggle came with the price tag: education. Because for many people, six figures didn't just fall into their lap. It came after 4 years of college, maybe six, maybe a master's degree, maybe certifications, maybe trade school, maybe years of grinding and studying while working full time. And what came with that? Student loans. See, that's the part of the six figure story we don't glamorize. You worked hard, you invested in yourself, you got the degree, you climbed the ladder, and now you're making $100,000. But you also owe $60,000, $80,000, sometimes $150,000. So technically, you make six figures, but mentally, you still feel financially behind because every month that student loan payment hits like rent number two. And what makes it even heavier is this: we were told education was the guaranteed path to comfort. Go to school, get a degree, you'll be set. But nobody told us the cost of entry would follow us for 10 to 20 years. Nobody explained interest the way they should have. Nobody broke down what $800 a month for 15 years really feels like. And here's the emotional part: you did everything right, and you still feel pressure. You got the job, you got the title, you got the salary, but you're still calculating payments before vacations, still postponing buying a house, still thinking twice before making a major move, because debt changes what comfort feels like. Education was supposed to be the elevator, but for some people, it feels like a treadmill with a diploma. Now, let's be fair. Education can absolutely increase income potential. It can open doors. It can build stability. But the return on investment depends on the field you chose, the debt you accumulated, the salary you negotiated, and the market you're in. And here's the deeper conversation. Sometimes the struggle isn't the income, it's the timeline. You spend your 20s in school, your early 30s paying debt, finally hit $100,000, and you feel behind instead of ahead. So when someone says 6 figures should be enough, they're not factoring in the education costs that got you there. Because if you're bringing home $6,000 a month and $900 of that is student loans, your comfort margin shrinks instantly. That's the education struggle. And the real question becomes, was the debt worth the income, or would financial literacy earlier have created a different path? That's a real debate, and it hits different when you lived it. Now let's take it deeper, because the education struggle brings up another uncomfortable question. Was college the only way? For years, we were taught there was one formula: graduate high school, go to college, get the degree, get the job, earn 6 figures. But what about the people who chose trade school? Electricians, plumbers, HVAC techs, mechanics. Some of them are clearing $100,000 without $100,000 in debt. And that shifts the conversation because now it's not just about income, it's about net position. You can make $100,000 with a master's degree and owe $120,000, or make $100,000 with a trade certification and owe $5,000. That's two completely different levels of comfort. And then there's entrepreneurship. The people who said, I'm not going to borrow $80,000 for a degree. I'm going to build something. Now, entrepreneurship comes with risk. It comes with uncertainty. No guaranteed paycheck, no benefits, no safety net. But here's the part that hits. Some entrepreneurs hit 6 figures without the debt anchor. And when you don't have that monthly student loan payment breathing down your neck, $100,000 feels different. It stretches further. But let's be real too. Not everybody's built for entrepreneurship. Not everybody wants inconsistent income. Not everybody wants that stress. And not every degree is useless either. Doctors, engineers, lawyers, specialized fields, education is necessary. So this isn't anti-college. This is pro-awareness. Because comfort isn't just about how much you make, it's about how much you owe. And sometimes the path we were told was the safe path ends up costing the most. That's a real conversation. Let's talk about something that doesn't show up on spreadsheets: pressure. Making $100,000 comes with expectations: family expectations, social expectations, self expectations. When people know you make 6 figures, they assume you're good. They assume you don't struggle. They assume you can help. But what they don't see is your expenses, your debt, your goals, your responsibilities. And here's the quiet part. Sometimes the higher the income, the higher the pressure. Because now you feel like you can't go backwards. You feel like you have to maintain the lifestyle. You feel like one mistake could unravel everything. And if you grew up without money, 6 figures feels like survival insurance. You don't feel rich, you feel cautious. You don't splurge comfortably, you calculate everything because you remember what it felt like not to have it. So now $100,000 isn't about luxury, it's about security. And security feels different depending on your background. Some people making $70,000 feel peaceful. Some people making $150,000 feel anxious because comfort is emotional, not just mathematical. Now let's talk about something that completely messed up our perception of money: social media. Because in 2026, everybody looks rich online. Luxury cars, designer outfits, trips every month, rooftop brunches, first class flights, high rise apartments with city views. And when you scroll long enough, you start thinking, if I'm making $100,000, why don't I look like that? But here's what nobody posts: the 84-month car loan, the maxed out credit cards, the rent eating 60% of income, the anxiety behind the flex. We live in the borrowed lifestyle era. Some people aren't rich, they're leveraged. And that distorts what comfort looks like. Because comfort isn't loud, it's quiet. Comfort is bills paid early, emergency funds stat, retirement contributions automatic, no panic when the AC breaks. That doesn't get likes. A $1,200 dinner does. And if you're not careful, you'll make $100,000 and still feel broke. Not because you are, but because you're comparing your stability to someone's highlight reel. All right, let's land this plane. Is $100,000 enough to live comfortably? The honest answer, it depends. It depends on where you live, how many people depend on you, how much debt you carry, how disciplined you are, how you define comfort. For some people, $100,000 is stability. For others, it feels tight. But here's the real takeaway: six figures used to mean you made it. Now it means you have a foundation. It gives you opportunity. It gives you breathing room if you manage it right. But without budgeting, without strategy, without discipline, even $200,000 can feel small. The number doesn't create comfort, the structure does. So maybe the better question isn't, is $100,000 enough? Maybe the better question is my lifestyle aligned with my income? Because if you're intentional, focused, and financially aware, yes, $100,000 can absolutely be comfortable. But if you're chasing status, comparing online, and carrying heavy debt, no number will ever feel like enough. Six figures isn't the finish line, it's the starting line for financial maturity. And that's the conversation people need to have.